Jesus of Nazareth, guilty or not guilty? It's a fairly simple question, right? Of course he's not guilty. He's innocent. That's why he dies in our place. Jesus is falsely accused, wrongfully convicted, and unlawfully, unjustly put to death. Jesus is guilty in the eyes of Roman law. But for those who are his beloved disciples, who are gathered here today at the foot of his cross, they're the only ones who know better. Actually, if you read St. John's Passion account a little more carefully, you'll see that it's worse than that. 3 times, Pilate tells the crowd, "I find no guilt in him." And the last time is especially bad because it's Pilate's way of passing the buck. Because he says, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." Jesus is never actually legally pronounced guilty. Pilate, in essence, does exactly the opposite. 3 times he pronounces him innocent, but then he allows Jesus to be executed as if he is guilty. This is the same Pilate who, when he and Jesus are one-on-one together, he very dismissively asks the Lord, "What is truth?" That is a very jaded and cynical question. And yet Pilate has the uncanny ability to speak the truth many times without even knowing it. Well, for example, not only does Pilate pronounce Jesus innocent, but he then technically confesses the fuller truth about who Jesus is. Pilate also wrote an inscription and put it on the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Now this signage is very much to the chagrin of those Jews, and they object, and Pilate's response to them is also dismissive, but in a way that, at least to me, is a little more gratifying. So the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write, 'the King of the Jews,' but rather, 'This man said, I am the King of the Jews.'" Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." Pilate is right on both counts. Jesus is innocent, and he is the King of the Jews. He is not a sinner, but he is the sin bearer. The writing was on the wall from the beginning, as when John the Baptist proclaimed, "Behold, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world." All of the sacrificial lambs of Israel were like Jesus in this respect. There was no guilt in them, as there is no guilt in him. They didn't deserve to be slaughtered. They had no sins except for those which they carried. They had no guilt except that which was laid on them. So it is with the man on the cross, the true Lamb of God. Jesus assumes he assumes guilt that doesn't belong to him by nature or by deed. He endures punishment that he did not earn. As Isaiah says, "He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, so he opened not his mouth." The Passover has come. And I don't mean the old Passover, the one which commemorates the exodus of the Israelites out of Egypt. The old has gone. The new has come. Now the blood of the Passover lamb is spattered not on doorpost and lintel, but on the rough wood of the cross. The angel of death passes over faithful Israel, but it does its worst to the firstborn, not of Egypt, but of God. This firstborn is also the Lamb who takes on guilt and sin and death. And in exchange, those for whom the Lamb is sacrificed receive forgiveness and innocence and righteousness and salvation and life. And with that, Jesus dies. It is finished, he says. And what more can we say? Well, much more, but words fail. What more can we do? Well, there is nothing that we can do to add to that sacrifice. But there is a natural response. We ought to do as the Hebrews of old did. It's only natural. Once the lamb was sacrificed, it was to be eaten. And this is how we receive his sacrifice. And this is why there is no more fitting day to eat and drink the body and blood of the Lamb of God than Good Friday. We have guilt. Jesus has forgiveness. For indeed, Christ our Passover was sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast.